All right, so if you want to bring in the wood, like the crate or whatever it is, and turn it into a table, you go up here to, well, first of all, you'll notice I have a folder over here that I can put it in. So we'll go over here to File, and then I'll place Linked. Okay, and let's see, here we go. It's the wood JPEG. And I'll go ahead and I'll move it down. Let's just scoot it down. I'm holding down Shift to constrain it to a certain spot. And then if you want to scale it, you can, so that it fits in the right amount of space. Now that's not going to be the same as doing perspective. So if you need to adjust it later, you can. This is one option that you can do to compress it right now. So let's go ahead and hit return. And I'm going to go ahead and drop this inside of my wood table folder. And you'll notice that it's a linked object. I can either choose to leave it linked, or I can rasterize it by right-clicking and rasterizing. The problem is if you rasterize it, that it will become a destructive layer. So if you want to keep it non-destructive as long as you can, so that you can make modifications that way, then what you can do is go ahead and just go over here, leave it linked, and you'll go over and go to Edit, and then you can either choose Perspective Warp, which is going to do something different, or if you want to do it just using this Perspective Transform tool, you can go over to Transform and choose Perspective. Now, if I grab it and I pull it out like this, you'll see that it starts to make it so that the vanishing point becomes sort of a little bit more realistic out in the distance, right? So you can see that the vanishing point is here, roughly. So if you wanted to make it so that the vanishing point was realistic, it'd probably be coming out to somewhere out to here, roughly. All right. So this is one of the ways that you could do it, and you can make sure when you expand it and zoom in that the resolution isn't distorted too much, right? And it's not, because it was already such a high resolution image, and so if I pull it out like that, then it's okay. All right, and so that's one of the ways that you can do that. And if you didn't like the way that this bottom piece was sort of still sticking out, you could come up here and go back to scale, and you could, just pull it down a little bit, just enough so that it kind of hides that bottom edge. And then, however you want to do it, it's really up to you. You can undo that if you feel it's a little too distorted. So the other thing too is that you'll notice that it's like very sort of gray, like it's water-worn, sort of whitewashed wood. If you wanted to make it so that it's a little bit fresher looking, you could go ahead and create an adjustment layer. All right, that's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it, if I deselect, is I can also go over here. If you hover over the thumbnail portion and you right-click, you can say select pixels, and it will select the actual pixels that are in existence in that layer. And then I can create a hue saturation adjustment layer, either by clicking down here and saying hue saturation, or I could go up to the hue saturation panel that's over on the right side. And you want to make sure, let's open this up some more. You got to make sure that you select colorize, and then you can adjust the hue so that it is sort of in the right range, somewhere in the ballpark of what wood naturally would be. And then saturation, I'm going to saturate it a little bit more so that it starts to get a sort of a deeper color. And then maybe I'll drop the lightness down just a little bit so that it looks a little bit more weather-worn, or less weather-worn, I should say. So it could be somewhere in that range. However you want to colorize it, you can. All right, and so then what it does is, if you look at the layers, you see that it puts a hue saturation layer on top of it that is masked to only affect the board, the wood, right? Okay, so that's how you can start to look at doing the perspective on the table.